So with a lot of teams having disappointing first round exits, I wanted to talk about 20 players this offseason that are well-known names that could be on the move via a trade. I feel like it was a tame offseason in 2023, so I feel like in 2024, this upcoming offseason, we could see some massive deals go down. And the first guy I want to talk about is going to be Brandon Ingram. He's an unrestricted free agent next offseason, and the Pelicans can't afford to lose him for nothing. Ingram in the 2024 season, in my opinion, took a step back from his 2023 season where we saw elite playmaking towards the end of the year. He had some injuries that he was dealing with this year, but the points were down, the assists were down, the efficiency was down, and he just didn't look like as an impactful defender that he was in 2023. And like I said, the Pelicans cannot afford to lose him for nothing. So they may look to trade him this offseason. They may want to extend Trey Murphy instead since he'll be a little bit cheaper and is a little bit younger than Brandon Ingram. So be on the lookout for Brandon Ingram to get moved this offseason. And if so, he's still just 26 years old. He'll have so many different suitors. Next up, we got DeJounte Murray of the Atlanta Hawks. Funny enough, I think like a Murray for Ingram, some type of trade would actually work out for both parties. But DeJounte Murray was in trade rumors this past trade deadline. We thought he was going to get traded maybe to the Lakers, maybe to the Jazz. And even the Pelicans were interested in Murray at the deadline. He did just sign a new extension with the Atlanta Hawks that kicks in next year. It's a 4-year, $120 million deal. Murray's coming off a season where he averaged 22.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists. And he definitely took a step back on the defensive end of the floor, but in a decent amount of games, a nice sample size without Trae Young, Murray averaged 24 points, 8.5 assists, 2 steals a night, and shot 45% from the field and 36% from three. Murray, still young, just signed a contract extension, and nowadays $30 million isn't too much. He'd go for a nice return on the trade market as well if Atlanta wanted to break up Murray and Trae Young. And I do want to talk about Trae Young as well. We're going to double dip here into the Atlanta Hawks side of things. Now, the reason why the Hawks could prefer to move Trae Young as well is because they would get a much larger return for Trae Young than they would for DeJounte Murray. Trae Young is under contract as well for the next 3 seasons, $43 million in 2025, $46 million in 2026, and $49 million in 2027. He was coming off an injury-riddled season, but still put up 26 points and 11 assists and was an all-star this year. And there are teams out there that have draft capital that could be interested in Trae Young. Teams like Utah, teams like San Antonio, who made the DeJounte Murray trade with the Hawks a few off seasons ago and own those future Hawks picks. And if the Hawks enter in somewhat of a retool, rebuild era going forward, they may want some of their draft picks back going forward, so they aren't a bad team and don't even own their draft picks in those specific years. So yeah, Trae Young obviously means more to the city of Atlanta and is a better player than DeJounte Murray. But the reason if they are to split those two up and trading Trae Young over DeJounte Murray is because you can get a pretty good return for Trae Young. And if you think DeJounte Murray could be your lead point guard going forward, you would have nice pieces around him with that return package for Trae Young. I feel like if the Cavs lost to the Orlando Magic in round 1, Donovan Mitchell definitely was going to be traded. And I think he still can be traded this offseason because like Brandon Ingram, he could be a free agent in the 2025 offseason. He has a player option for the 2026 year. He would be very smart to opt out of that, get a much larger bag on the open market, and Cleveland cannot afford to lose Donovan Mitchell for nothing. They gave up so much for Donovan Mitchell. Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji, a bunch of unprotected first-round picks and swaps, and teams would definitely line up to give up so much for Donovan Mitchell if he were to get traded this offseason. He just came off an elite performance towards the end of that round 1 series against the Magic, putting up 50 points in game 6. He's still one of the better shooting guards in the league, in my opinion, still a top 3 shooting guard in the league. And he's 27 years old. It really hasn't worked out as probably they originally thought with Darius Garland. And since he hasn't signed an extension yet with Cleveland, it'd be very risky to not trade him this offseason and not sign him to an extension either, because you could run the risk of losing him for absolutely nothing in the 2025 offseason, and that could set Cleveland back a couple of years. Now, if Cleveland decides not to trade Donovan Mitchell this offseason, they could still make another move to kind of shake things up, and I think Jared Allen could be on the block as well. I don't think they'd want to move Darius Garland. They would be selling him at his lowest point because he had a down year this season. That would be kind of silly. You don't want to move Evan Mobley. Still has a ton of potential and looked elite as a center defensively with Jared Allen hurt towards the end of that round 1 series against the Magic. So could Jared Allen get traded this offseason? Possibly. We'll see if Allen is fully healthy against the Boston Celtics in that series. The Celtics are going to be without Kristaps Porzingis. We'll see how Mobley and Allen can work against an undersized Boston team. Mobley and Allen did not play great in the first couple of games together in this Orlando series, and they did not play well against the New York Knicks last year in round number 1. Jared Allen is making $20 million next year and $20 million in 26. He would want a big contract after that. So Cleveland may look to trade him this offseason because someone that's 26 years old, only making $20 million a year, was an elite defender at the center spot for the Cavs throughout the regular season, would net a great haul and a great return if the Cavs decided to move Jared Allen. So many teams would look look for a big man like Jared Allen. You're talking about OKC, you're talking about New Orleans, Orlando, Sacramento, Los Angeles. So many teams would want to trade and give up valuable assets for Jared Allen. So I think Cleveland should think about it this offseason if they're not going to trade away Donovan Mitchell. We're going to go to South Beach here. I want to talk about Tower Hero of the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler is not getting any younger with this team right now. Bam Adebayo, still one of the best two-way players in the league and one of the best defensive big men you could have. They have the best coach in the NBA, in my opinion, in Eric Spoelstra. So they may try to leverage Tower Hero, who's just 24 years old this offseason, to try to get a better number 2 scoring option on this team after Jimmy Butler. Now, they could leverage Tower Hero into maybe a Brandon Ingram or a DeJounte Murray or a Donovan Mitchell and some of the guys that we've talked about already. Maybe they call Los Angeles and try to get Paul George in a sign and trade for Tower Hero. Maybe Milwaukee's just giving up on the Damian Lillard experiment already and they do a hero and assets for Damian Lillard. There's definitely so many different routes Miami could go this offseason, and I doubt this team runs it back. I know Hero is in offseason trade talks all the time, but I do think that this offseason is going to be a big one for the Miami Heat, and I expect them to make a big move. And if they don't trade away Tower Hero, they could trade away Jimmy Butler. It's been kind of weird lately on Twitter. Brian Windhorst at ESPN, John Hollinger of The Athletic have kind of been hinting at Jimmy Butler is unhappy in Miami and could ask for a trade this offseason. It seems like he wants a max contract extension from Miami, and Miami is going to be hesitant to give him that due to his age and his injury history. And he still has another year left on his deal as well. He could be an unrestricted free agent in the 2025 offseason like Donovan Mitchell. He has a player option for the 26 season. You'd think he'd opt out of that. And Butler's coming off a solid regular season, wasn't an all-star. He put up 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Like I said, though, he's going to be 35 years old next offseason. Would you want to pay him 4 years, $160, $170 million, one last big deal? How do you think that Jimmy Butler is going to age into his late 30s? A lot of risks run with giving Jimmy Butler a max extension this offseason for Miami, so they could look to trade him this offseason if they really can't find a good Tower Hero trade and they don't want to extend Jimmy anymore going forward. Man, on paper right now, the 2025 free agency class looks elite. And I know a lot of guys are going to sign extensions before then, but somebody that's going to be an unrestricted free agent in that free agency class is going to be Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz. Lauri Markkanen is going to turn 27 very soon. By the time the Utah Jazz are good again, he's going to be north of 30. And the Jazz are still trying to figure out who's going to be their long-term pieces. They got to figure out what they have in Taylor Hendricks and Bryce Sensabaugh and Keontae George and Walker Kessler. They may have multiple first-round picks in this draft as well. They have multiple first-round picks going forward from the Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert trades. They may not want to give Lauri Markkanen the contract that he's looking for, and they may be a little hesitant to do so, and they may get a great trade offer this offseason. We kind of know that Danny Ainge makes these crazy moves. He tries to stay 2 steps ahead, and the fact that Lauri Markkanen is probably going to be north of 30 years old by the time the Utah Jazz are trying to do anything in the playoffs could be kind of enticing for Utah to move him this offseason, and they could get a phenomenal return if they do so. Markkanen's coming off a 23-point, 8-rebound season and was a really good forward once again. Next up, we have Julius Randle of the New York Knicks. The Knicks are in the second round without Julius Randle. Randle has played in 3 playoff series with the Knicks before, one in 2021 against the Hawks, in which he averaged 18 points, shooting 29% from the field, and then 2 playoff series in 2023. In round 1 against the Cavs, he averaged 14 points, shooting 33% from the field, and then in round 2 against Miami, he averaged 18 points on 41% field goal shooting. He also shot 23% from 3 against the Cavs and 28% from 3 against the Heat. Wasn't a good free throw shooter either, was not a good defender, was turning the ball over a ton as well. And if the Knicks can make it to the conference finals without Julius Randle, they could look at this 2 different ways. They could be like, you know what, we could have maybe made the NBA finals if Randle was healthy, or they could be like, you know what, we're a really good team without Randle. Maybe we try to get somebody that's not a score first big like Randle, and they look to get another defender or shooter this offseason, or try to leverage Randle for a better secondary shot creator behind Jalen Brunson, because Randle, like a bunch of these other guys, has a player option for the 2026 season at $32 million. You'd think Randle is going to be a free agent next summer. He's going to opt out of that deal, and he's going to be an unrestricted free agent in the 2025 offseason. The Knicks have to pay Jalen Brunson the max by then, so they could be hesitant to extending Julius Randle, and that could lead to a trade of Randle this offseason for the Knicks. All right, I'm cheating with this one, but I'm going to talk about Paul George. He has a player option for next year's season. You'd think he's going to opt out of that, try to get one last bag. Maybe he pulls what James Harden did last year with the Philadelphia 76ers, opts in, and then maybe tries to get traded or something like that. But there could be a sign and trade with Paul George this offseason. There are going to be teams that would be very interested in PG. Could it be a reunion in Indiana? Could Could a team like Orlando, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, San Antonio be interested in Paul George? For sure. So there'd be a lot of suitors lined up. And if the Clippers could get anything in return for Paul George, they have to do that. They need to get younger. They need to get more draft capital going forward. So that could have just been the last year that we've seen Paul George as a Clipper. And then I'm going to add in James Harden as well on this. I don't think that Kawhi Leonard gets traded this offseason. Harden is going to be an unrestricted free agent. There could be a sign and trade in this as well. Harden tried to get one last contract. He's 34 years old. He's going to be 35 when next year's season starts. He shot 42% from the field, averaged 16 points and 8.5 assists. I don't know if the Clippers would want to give Harden the max. I don't know if Harden is expecting the max at this point of his career. And that's another sign and trade that we could see this offseason for sure, if San Antonio maybe wants a point guard to set up Wemby going forward. All right, so let's go to the Big Apple again. We talked about Julius Randle, but we're going to talk about the other team in New York, the Brooklyn Nets. We're going to talk about Mikal Bridges, who definitely failed as a number one option this year for the Nets. We all thought he was going to break out. He could have won Most Improved Player this year, leading the Nets to a hopeful playoff appearance. That didn't happen. He's 27 years old. He averaged 19.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He shot 43% from the field. I feel like towards the end of the year, the Nets didn't really want to play him in the fourth quarter whatsoever. It was really weird. They do have a new head coach coming in Jordi Fernandez. Bridges does have 2 years left on his contract, $23 million next year and $25 million in 2026. So it is still a good contract going forward. But if Brooklyn wants to recoup some assets or maybe try to leverage Bridges and some of their draft picks they have from Phoenix or Philadelphia to make a move this offseason, they could definitely do so because Bridges would definitely have some appeal out there. He's still a very good defender and three-point shooter. All right, I have no idea what's going on with LeBron James this offseason. I had to throw him in this video. It could be a sign and trade. He could opt out of his player option and be an unrestricted free agent, or he could just opt in or re-sign with the Lakers this offseason. I do not know. You really never know with LeBron, but there's a chance he tests unrestricted free agency for the first time since the 2018 offseason when he signed with the LA Lakers. LeBron is 39 years old. He's going to be 40 years old in December, but still had an all-star caliber year. He's going to be an all-NBA member, put up 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists a night. That would be so many teams in this league, either best player or number 2, and 100% their third best player on the team. So LeBron would definitely have some great appeal league-wide, so he could be on a new team this offseason, and we could see him on his 4th team of his career. Milwaukee had such a disappointing round 1 exit. I know Giannis was hurt and Dame was hurt as well, and that series could have definitely gone the other way if those guys were fully healthy, but Milwaukee may look at their current roster and say that we need to make another big move this offseason. Obviously, they're not trading Giannis. They just traded for Dame last offseason, and they could try to leverage Chris Middleton's really impressive round 1 performance against the Pacers and try to trade him this offseason. Middleton is going to be 33 years old next year. He just appeared in 55 games in the regular season, averaging 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists on good efficiency. But in round 1 against the Pacers, he shot 48% from the field, 36% from 3, 90% from the line, and averaged 25 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists, and it's some really huge clutch shots for the Bucks in that series. Middleton is owed $31.5 million in 2025 and a $34 million player option in 2026, so he could be an unrestricted free agent in 2025 as well. And Milwaukee may try to leverage Middleton in their first-round pick or some of their young guys like Marjon Beauchamp or Andre Jackson to improve at the forward position next year. I feel like I had to put a Phoenix Sun in here, right? I definitely did. They're not trading Devin Booker. He's under 30 years old. He's still one of the best shooting guards in this league, and it was his first year playing point guard, and I think he did a fine job. He's only going to get better in that role. I'm sure Suns fans and the Suns would want to trade Bradley Beal, and they regret that trade they made last offseason, but nobody's taking on the Bradley Beal Supermax contract, plus he has a no-trade clause as well. So the one Sun I threw in here was Kevin Durant. KD's going to be 36 years old next year. He's coming off a season where he averaged 27 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 5 assists on elite efficiency again. One of the more efficient players of all time, 52% from the field, 41% from 3, and 86% from the line. I thought KD improved as a defender this year as well from what he was doing last year with Phoenix. And he was really good against Minnesota in their round 1 sweep. I mean, he put up 27 points, 6.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists on really good efficiency, but Phoenix may look at this team and may say, we can't really upgrade anywhere else unless we trade Kevin Durant, and let's get a good return in for him before he ends up either retiring or regressing as a whole next year. Remember the Zach LaVine trade talks from the trade deadline? Yeah, they are definitely going to resurface this offseason. LaVine only appeared in 25 games last year. The Bulls do have Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White, Javon Carter, Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball is coming back. They have so many guards on the roster right now. LaVine is 29 years old, and Chicago really needs to enter a rebuild, and some of these teams may look for some secondary shot creation like Milwaukee, like a New York, like a Philadelphia or a Los Angeles, and LaVine could definitely get moved this offseason because if he can stay healthy, he could still be an efficient scorer in this league, not a great defender, so you're not really trading for that, but you do have to stomach the contract that LaVine does have. $43 million next year, $46 million in 2026, and a $49 million player option in 2027 that he's probably going to opt into. But I think some teams may be desperate this offseason and call up Chicago to make a deal. Another disappointing exit this year in the play-in tournament, not even the playoffs, was the Golden State Warriors. Steph isn't getting any younger. Klay Thompson is an unrestricted free agent. Could Golden State try to trade away one of their better young players in Jonathan Kuminga to try to get Steph one more run at it before he ends up retiring? Jonathan Kuminga broke out in year number 3, elevating his scoring total from 9.9 points a night to 16 points a night. The efficiency went up, the rebounding went up, the playmaking was better this year, just looked more comfortable out there in the half court. And he's not due for a rookie extension this offseason. It could be done, but it could also happen next offseason as well. And they may try to leverage like an Andrew Wiggins or a Draymond Green contract to move on from Jonathan Kuminga to try to get one of the guys that I mentioned in this video to, like I said, try to help get Steph Curry one more ring before he ends up retiring. Next up, we got Josh Giddey of the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder could end up winning the finals this year, or they could have a disappointing round 2 exit to the Dallas Mavericks. Either way, they're paying Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a ton of money right now, and eventually we'll have to re-sign him. They're going to have to pay Chad Holmgren and Jalen Williams in a few years. I'm sure they'd like to keep Lou Dort around as well, so I don't think that they're going to pay Josh Giddey a rookie extension following the 2025 season. So they may try to leverage Josh Giddey and some of this draft capital to get a more immediate help to try to win a championship again in 2025. Kyle Kuzma is coming off a season where he averaged 22.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and shot 46% from the field and 34% from 3. Also looked like a solid playmaker out there as well. And someone that is still a legitimate stretch forward could be appealing to some teams on the open market this offseason, especially since he has a descending contract as well. $23 million next year, $21 million in 2026, and then just $19 million in 2027. I could see a team giving up a first round pick or two for Kuzma this summer. And lastly, we have one big name. So I know that the 76ers have cap space this offseason. Maybe they try to end up getting a Paul George or a Jimmy Butler or somebody like that. But what if they do a complete zag and they trade away Joel Embiid? Embiid is still one of the top 5 players in the NBA. They would get an absolute haul for somebody that has never made it to the conference finals in his career. Embiid is coming off a season where he averaged 35 points and 11 rebounds in just 39 games. It looked like he was going to be the MVP again this season before he went down with another injury. He put up 50 points in game 3 against the Knicks in round 1 on one knee and with one eye. But you have another franchise guy in Tyrese Maxey, so they may trade Joel Embiid this offseason if they feel like they're not going to accomplish their goal with him there just because of the question marks every year surrounding his health. I'm not saying it will happen this offseason, but I wouldn't be totally surprised if it ends up being something the 76ers go with moving forward. So yeah, that is going to be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If there's anybody that I left out that you think could get traded this offseason, please let me know in the comments. And if there's somebody that I mentioned that you think there's no chance in hell they end up getting traded, please let me know in the comments as well. I do think that this is going to be a very, very entertaining offseason. I feel like the 2025 summer, that looming with all these expiring contracts, could result in a ton of trades this offseason, and a lot of teams had disappointing exits, so they may try to upgrade going forward. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.